my
Oh my.
Stephanie, so glad to have you here today. I'm so excited about our conversation. And for those of you joining us, welcome to the She Has Infinite Potential, also known as the SHIP. Today, me and Stephanie are going to be talking about emotional intelligence at work and really being able to create safe spaces and systems that support safe spaces. So thank you, Stephanie, for joining us.
Of course. Always here to support my girls at the ship.
So I want to just dive right in because we only have 30 minutes today. And I know that you have so much wealth of knowledge and experiences working in corporate spaces. So let's start with, why is it important for women or people in general to be able to voice their opinions when something is maybe causing some friction at work?
If you notice a trend in corporate America, again, I've been in the corporate space for all of almost 20 years now, right? But one thing I have seen consistently is people quietly quitting because they either don't feel safe, advocating for themselves, don't feel safe with their managers, don't feel safe with their coworkers, and there's no resolve. So instead of voicing their concerns, they leave, thinking that they will go to another organization or go somewhere where you feel it will be a better thing for you and your family. But what I have learned just in my professionalism and just as I've learned and grown as an executive coach is if you don't learn how to voice your concerns, whether it's, and I always tell people, it don't even have to be at work, at home or at work. What you're doing is you're taking that with you everywhere that you go. And eventually it's going to be a buildup to where you may go from one extreme to the next, or you're just going to be a pushover. And people internalize a lot of things. And so I'll give you an example. I've been around people where, they may have been mad at something that a coworker may have said, but the coworker don't even know that they're offended. So you're walking around with this anger or this vendetta against your boss or your peer or your coworker, and they don't know why. Whose fault is that? So you got to ask yourself that question. Whose fault is it that they said something that offended me, but I can't tell them that it offended me because I don't want to appear to be weak or be that person at the job? What do I do? One thing that I learned working for an international company and being one of their DEI co-chairs is it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But if you don't take the time to educate people, especially if you're working in a multicultural environment, there should be a time that there's some type of education, because the reality is people will only treat you the way you allow, which goes into the emotional intelligence piece. Most adults don't have emotional intelligence. I said what I said.
I mean, where would they have learned it? Right? Would they have learned it in school? Would they have learned it at home? Maybe. Yeah. Would they have learned it on the job, just trial and error? It's not necessarily something that comes naturally to a lot of people. And even if it did, it's not enough to sustain an organization, a living system to be able to support those types of behaviors. So if someone finds themselves in a company or in a situation that, actually, even before I ask that next follow-up question, I want to just echo this, because we're talking about safe spaces of being able to express yourself, right? When something is causing issues with you or maybe hurting your feelings or all of those things. But I come from an industrial world, right? And so this same thing affects us when it comes to personal safety or safety in general. Being able to say, hey, stop, I think this work is not safe. Or being able to say, like, is there a way that we can do this differently, and know that your voice is going to be heard, is a very big hurdle for a lot of people, because we've got a job to do. We got to get this constructed. We got to get this built. We got to da. And so for you to say, hey, wait, pause, even though I'm thinking the best interest of everybody and I'm trying to make sure that we're all doing this on a good page, it's still difficult to be the one that kind of slows it down because it's not necessarily built into the culture. But when organizations take the time to make safety, like I'm talking PPE, safety a priority, that gives people the authority to be able to say, hey, we need to slow it down and make sure we're doing it right. So with that sense, if there's no company culture that says, hey, I support us slowing it down to be able to voice your opinion, what can a person do if they're finding themselves in an organization where they don't feel comfortable speaking out and saying, hey, I think that things need to be different, or I think we need to take a moment to educate so that we can work better together? What would you recommend that they do?
So I'm going to speak to a couple things. So one, there's two different dynamics. If you are a employee versus a manager, there's two different dynamics, right? So I'm speaking to the employees first. Employees who don't feel like they have a voice because of their pay grade. Okay. So you specifically, like I just told you guys, when we just start talking, you have to teach people how to treat you. It doesn't matter the pay grade. So if integrity is your thing, is I want to make sure I operate it as integrity. I want to feel like I'm at a safe space. So that means if for me to feel like there's an area of belonging, even if there's not, typically companies don't know what you need because you don't voice what you need. You don't voice your concerns. You don't do those things because you don't want to be that person. In my career, I didn't mind being that person. I didn't mind being that person because I knew it was so many people that were suffering around me and nobody wanted to be, as I would call it, the sacrificial lamb. Sacrificial lamb that would take all the beatings for everybody else. You know, somebody has to be the one to break the silence, or else you're telling leadership that everything is okay.
They don't know what they don't know.
You can't fix what you're not willing to face, period. And for corporations that are not willing to fix or face what they're, face or anything like that, for people who are employees or their managers who can't voice their concerns, that environment is deemed psychologically unsafe. If I go, and some people, you would notice, I even seen people in leadership that are that way, meaning they're have a dictatorship and all that kind of aggressiveness, passive aggressive at work, because they're the exact opposite at home. So that energy is transferred to your job. It's causing disintegration amongst your employees. They're scared to talk. They're scared to do those things. You have to realize what kind of environment do you want to create where people are belonging, where people feel safe, because this is your home away from home. Mm-hmm. And so for me, for workers, just going back to that point, if you want to be a worker, it has to be about what am I going to get out of this if I say something? I'm bringing awareness. That has to sometimes be enough for you. Like, I want to make sure that if I leave, that I have literally checked off all boxes, that I brought awareness, that I brought it to HR, that I lovingly corrected you when you disrespected me in front of other coworkers, where I felt like, okay, this is not okay. Whether it's for my culture, whether it's for my pay grade or whatever, we're all interconnected human beings. If you don't speak up and advocate for yourself, you're basically telling the other person, whether it's your boss or their boss's boss or whoever, your coworker, that it's okay for them to talk to you like that, treat you like that. And, and that's when you may see people I'm just going to quietly quit because I don't have to deal with it. You are going to deal with it. And you're also going to see it again. It may come in a different package. But it's going to happen because you cannot fix what you're not willing to face.
It sounds like the personal accountability part of it is where you would start. So like before you quiet quit, before you actually quit, before you give up on, 100% of the situation because 15% of it is pissing you off so much, why don't you take the accountability and try your best to address it? Then that puts the ball in their court. Hey, I brought this up. I've done what I'm supposed to do. I'm trying to correct it. Like I'm done my part. Do you care enough to do your part? If not, that just confirms and lets me know, you know what? This was not my fault.
That's it.
This was not my company. This was not my role. And because of that, I now have the power to be able to make that decision for myself and decide, am I going to stick it out until this person moves departments? Am I going to stick it out until I get moved to departments? Or am I going, like, then it really becomes a decision, an empowered decision, rather than a fight or flight decision made out of pain and silence. So
that's it. Always get to the root. Okay, I'm pissed off. I don't like it here. Why? Ask yourself why. Is it because of their policies? You don't agree with their policies? I always say, I don't go to an organization I don't stand behind, period. I don't want to go to a job where I'm just getting paid. Getting paid is just not enough. If my my mental is at stake, if the environment is not safe, if I don't feel there's a level of flexibility because I am a single mom, it's so many dynamics to it. You gotta, your career has to make sense. You know what I'm saying? It has to go along with what you would do in your personal, meaning integrity, all those different things. But again, getting to the root and asking yourself why. Why do I want to leave? What have I done to contribute to why? Again, if you can hear our conversations, it's all about relationships. I always tell people, especially when I'm coaching them, I can't coach you personally if I can't coach you professionally, because it all bleeds into each other. It all bleeds. It's all about communication. It is. Get to the root and stop dealing with all this frivolous things. And maybe we can come to an actual emotional, intelligent type of resolve, because dealing with this, let me tell you something I learned about leaders. They only deal with facts. All of the other stuff is white noise. What is the high level overview?
What's the rules?
What is the bottom line here?
What's the cost? What's the rules? What's our responsibility?
What's the bottom line? So if I'm bringing you something to say, hey, this system isn't working and it's actually causing high retention, which turns into a cost. Because then again, my background is financial analyst. So I'm going to show you why this is, if you don't turn your organization around, this is how much money you about to lose. Because people, the value of your company is people, and it's fleeting. And the amount it costs to add somebody to your organization, to train them, and do all those things, this is how much it's costing you. But here's the cost savings. Deal with the stuff in your organization. Bring in the right consultants. Bring in the right people that's going to help it create a safe space. Because, oh, by the way, you don't have the capacity to do it. You don't have the capacity to bring in those to be a life coach to people, to make sure they have the training, to make sure they're onboarding. That's why the consultants are there to help do what you can. I flew up for a client, and I did it's called the Emerging Leaders Program that I do for or small businesses, smaller or mid-level businesses. And I'm training your managers. And what I want them to understand, because most managers don't understand their leadership style. They don't understand how they handle conflict. They don't understand how to communicate. And when you know your specific style of work, you know how to project to others, and you're more present. Well, how you not want to present to others, how you receive information. If you don't know who you are, how do you expect people to treat you?
And that's not just for managers. That's
no.
All and you mentioned some of the things like job flexibility or being able to stand behind a company. So whether you're a manager or not, number one, knowing your working style is important, but then also understanding that and being able to stand behind why it is you're showing up. Because like you're saying, it's not just a check. Like nowadays, it's not just a check. And I think when we find ourselves in a situation where you're saying to yourself, well, at the end of the day, they're paying me, that's a red flag, and it's not giving you a space to be able to be your best self. And it's not giving you the chance to exchange your best self for things that you want out of your career, like a strong company, integrity, safety, all of those different things. And so sometimes we find ourselves in a position where it's like, I need to make a check. I need to have this job. And those things get compromised. So we settle for those things what do you say to the person that is like, well, yeah, that sounds nice, but at the end of the day, I need this check? How do you encourage them to move forward without feeling like they're going to risk their livelihood?
Well, I always tell people I'm an executive life and Christian coach, and nothing against any other religion, but any spiritual person. If you have anything that you use to help you grow from a spiritual standpoint, that you feel that backing, I always say this: everybody has purpose in this world. Everybody does. I don't care who you are. God is no respecter of person. And I always say this. Before you can, we have a life that we've created for ourselves, and then we have a life that God intended for us to have. The life that God intends for you to have is fixed, is not variable. That means the same, the end is the same. And then you have this life that you decided to live with your degrees, with your accolades, with your community service, well, all these things. But the reality is that's only going to get you so far. When you are out of alignment, because I deal with alignment and transformation as a coach, when you are out of alignment with your purpose, basically you're going against the current of life. So now you're struggling mentally, physically, and emotionally. It's your own doing. So you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Or are you going to trust the process and take a chance and say, hey, I don't know, because people are going to get to that point. You're going to do
It's
that.
like the story of Jonah in the Bible, right? So God was calling him to do something. He said, oh, I don't think I want to do that this way. And just chaos and destruction followed him, and it affected everyone around him. So, I even take, when my car breaks down and then my light bill is 3 times as high and then my refrigerator stops working and
it's out of alignment.
They didn't deliver my stuff they delivered it to the neighbor, and now I got to go chase it down. When all those things are starting to happen, you ask yourself, like, is there something that the universe or God or whatever it is trying to tell me? Is there something that I need to let go of or step into that is different and uncomfortable so that I can access the next level, right? Sometimes you have to tear the Band-Aid off to let the wound get the air.
Those kind of things. And people don't want to talk about that in the workplace. But the reality is, outside of your professional garments, outside of the accolades, outside of the boardroom, outside of those, everything, you're just a human being with feelings, with emotions, with all of that. If you don't deal with you, the person, I always tell me, if I can't show up like myself in every room, I don't want to go. And it's so many people operating in imposter syndrome, and you're compiling all these things who you think that people want you to be in a room, you're going to suffocate. One day you're going to suffocate. So we in the realm of emotional intelligence, if somebody is, again, when you're having a conversation with people in your workplace, you don't know what mindset they're in. You don't know what state of mind they're in. You don't know what they're going through outside of this job. They be holding on by a thread. That's why I always see people say, check on your strong friends, because you just may not know what they're going through. It's the same in the workplace. You have no idea who's showing up. Somebody, you remember the current events where you have people out of desperation, something happened at their job, and they coming in and shooting up the job and doing all these crazy things because they reached their breaking point, and you don't know what people's breaking point is. So you have to lovingly lead people to where they need to go, especially people, leaders. You have a responsibility, to lead your team.
So with that, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. We're talking about, if a person is not able to voice themselves or be themselves, they can easily have feelings of burning out, suffocation, imposter syndrome, right? To the point that they could be reaching a breaking point. Again, I come from the industrial world. And one of my responsibilities was making sure that all of our machines were available. We call it mechanical availability. We have to reach 98% mechanical availability, meaning all of the machines in our facilities are available when we need them to be able to produce product. And so I think that when I think about people in the same sense, like the wealth of an organization is in its people. Those are the human machines. And so just like I'll do inspections, vibration monitoring, I'll do, corrosion monitoring, I check the health of these machines regularly, actioning programs to replace them, to spare them, to improve them, to monitor them, all sorts of things, because we know that in order for the organization to make product, we need these machines. But similarly, in order for an organization to do the activities that it needs to do, it needs the people. But instead of having reliability programs and, inspection programs, we have HR laws, and then that's kind of it.
That's kind of it.
It's kind of it, because leaders want facts. And if it's not a regulation, and if it's not something that we've studied through machine learning, through lean practices, that we can physically say, yes, this activity will lead to more production time, so yes, let's do it. We're missing that gap. And that's where consultants and things like that can come in. So what are some of the signs that a leader should be looking for to know, hey, some of your human machines might be needing some maintenance, they might be needing some support to be able to continue to stay available to you and not burn out and not reach their breaking point? What are some of the signs that leaders can be looking for?
One, how well is your relationship with your employees? Do you know your employees? Okay.
Good place to start. Oh, I think
I know. The second place is, if you built that relationship, you're able to, just like you would your child, anything else, you will be able to see if something's off. Look at the amount of workload and look at the amount of errors that are happening. 9 times out of 10, they may be dealing with something else. So instead of condemning them from the errors, actually ask questions. Because they just may tell you, you know what, I am off. You know what, I'm actually dealing with X, Y, and Z. Because life is going to happen. Like I said, if everybody, I always say, everybody needs a therapist and a life coach. Because there are going to be seasons in your life that something may bleed into one or the other, and you got to have that balance. Okay. So again, having that relationship is number one. Looking for the errors. If you're starting to see a lot of errors, again, they represent you, because you have somebody that you report to, and they're reporting to you. If they look bad, you look bad. If they're off, then you can only put on a face in front of other leaders for so long. Yeah. I always say, get your house in order. So if something is off, it's for you to investigate.
I love that. I love that you're like, look at the workload and look at the errors, because so many times people are so quick to put somebody on a performance plan and say, well, you're dropping the ball, what is going on? And it's a condemning, it's shameful. But when you're saying, hey, no, I want to be able to support you, then it changes the tone, and it gives people the safety to be able to say, hey, I need help.
Correct.
I want to be able to be here and show up, but I need a support, I need flexibility, or I need whatever it is. And then you can really start to have those conversations. So looking at the errors as well as the workload, right? If you know you're pumping out $200 million of projects versus the $50 million of projects you did the year before,
that's it.
That's 4 times the responsibility. And are we staffing and supporting for 4 times the responsibility?
And the reality is, a lot of people are overworked and underpaid. That's one of the main issues. But I know that's a whole rabbit hole to go down.
No, we don't have time for that. No. But I love that, because that is some of the measures that we use in lean engineering. So when we look at processes, or we look at machines and how they're operating, or how processes are done, we're looking at how many errors are coming out of this and how much work is going into it, so that you can get a percentage of accuracy and use that to be able to say, hey, this is where our system, our process is breaking down. So leaders like facts, right? So look at your factual errors, look at your factual workloads, and those can be real indicators of where you need to allocate support and really be able to provide safe spaces for your human machines. So much fun with this conversation, Stephani. Thank you so much. I want to know that there's so much that you do, where can somebody learn a little bit more about you if they wanted to get in touch?
Well, I do, and this is just for everybody. I do morning motivations on TikTok, Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 7:50 a.m. That's my labor of love. That's what I was led to do. So you can follow me at I am Stephani J on TikTok. Outside of that, I've been on the job right now. I have my new assignment. I always call it everything an assignment now. And that's been keeping me busy. But if you don't find me on ship, you're gonna have to follow me at my website, which is yourstepitupcoach.com, and be a part of my email list so that you always know and abreast of my next speaking engagement. Or if you just want life coaching or executive coaching yourself for you or your organization, definitely reach out to me at www.yourstepitupcoach.com. And always happy to speak, come in as a consultant to help you bridge the gap of communication within your organization, or you yourself as a leader if you just need that level of coaching, because I think every coach and every leader needs a coach. I do.
Yep. Absolutely. And Stephani is one of our shipmates. We have a diverse group of women. So she does executive coaching. I do technical leadership development. We have resume writers, marketing, branding, mentors.
Storytellers.
We have a wealth of coaches in here. So if you are listening and you're a leader looking to be able to provide safe spaces or support your organization, you can have Stephani as well as the other shipmates come in and do audits for you and be able to support you. So I love this conversation. I mean, we talk about this stuff all the time. Like this is a peek into what our text chats and our emails, like this is what we talk about all the time, because it really has an impact on so many lives, and we are not exempt because it's happened to us as well. And so it's a labor of love, more love than labor. So thanks, Stephani, for joining us today and talking about emotional intelligence. On the ship, she has infinite potential. And until next time, guys, stay in ship shape.
Yeah, I love that.